Hi, everyone. Welcome to Potluck Food Talks. Today, I'm here with my man, Phil W., and a very special guest, culinary sniper and fermentation Gandalf, Kevin, the Koji Whisperer, Jeung. How you doing, man?
Thanks for having me. Honored to be on the show.
Hey, thank you so much for being here, Kevin. We were super looking forward to having you on.
Yeah, I mean, we talk enough shit, and I listen to you guys on the podcast enough. I couldn't help but ask to be put on here. So thanks for having me.
Today, I had a food tour with Kevin, Phil. We went to Old Town, tried some things on a Monday, which is not so easy to find the best spots, but it was nice.
Yeah, was it good?
Yeah, we had our main man, Brian, who ate his first foie gras in front of us, which was...
Yeah, he lost his foie gras virginity just in front of us. It was quite an experience.
Damn, was that like a random guy coming on a tour with you guys? Or
the tour was supposed to be with 3 people, but the other 2 canceled. And he was actually telling me, like, man, I hope I'm not like ruining like a honeymoon couple having their tour. And then they canceled, and I was like, no, man, now you're having 2 guides for yourself for the tour. And he was super excited.
I can imagine, because like you guys going on a tour, you know, I mean, it's like your old turf, Kevin. No, I mean, like, you know, a lot of, you know, probably most of the spots. So I feel like it'd be really fun for you guys.
A lot of them I went to for the first time, which is really cool too. That like there was value. It wasn't like we were just lining up at, you know, Bar Nestor and Borderberry and Gujarat Center, like all the places we used to go to when we lived there.
Yeah.
Then we asked our man from Kentucky, like, son, what are you doing tomorrow? And he was like, I'm going to the beach and I'm going to get more foie gras. That's kind of what I'm going to do all day long. Yeah,
homie almost passed out when he had the foie gras for the first time. He like doubled over in the bar.
Did he actually?
He didn't know what it was. I had to explain to him what it was. He was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever had. What is it? And I'm like, so? And you have to like gently let him down because, you know, obviously with all the political stipulations and it's banned in California because of the controversial practices and things like that. And I mean, to his credit, he was okay with it. He was like, yeah, okay, it makes sense.
He was actually excited about it. He said, you should start like an animal cruelty tour. That would be amazing, you know? Like
Crazy how pintxo sometimes bring out the darkest corners of a person. You know?
Yeah, you do the foie gras. You would do the angulas as well. Thousands of voices screaming out in terror, and then suddenly nothing.
And then just sweet silence.
Yes.
Nice. Hey, I have a question. I was talking about this with somebody, and you guys, you know, might have an answer. Is Borderberry still legit?
Yeah, it's still my favorite place for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, I went a couple days ago. It's still good. It's crowded. Like, that's the thing, is it's so crowded in the Parte Vieja now.
Because when I was back in town, and like, I was like, man, Borderberry used to be like one of my favorite spots, you know, for the pigs here and the orzo.
Yeah, the oreja.
Yeah, exactly. And the canelon and stuff like that. And then it was like it really dipped in quality, and I feel like the place was empty.
I go there a lot, and I have to say, like, there's been times where there's been quality drops for whatever reason. Maybe there's an unexperienced cook in the kitchen or something. But I would say, like, the last times I've been, it's solid as it used to be. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah.
But now it's like Phil, remember when we were interns in 2011 and Saturdays we would finish at Mugaritz, go for a siesta, and then drive into San Sebastian, and we could like walk into Bar Nestor and then go to Borderberry after that, and then La Viña for cheesecake, and then we could go to Barunda all in one night.
Of course.
And then here, now it's like you have to line up for the tortilla to get your name down so you can get into Bar Nestor when they open eventually. Otherwise, you're waiting for the first wave to leave, and you know there were people in line waiting for an hour to get into Bar Nestor, and that's like a 3 to 4 hour commitment if you're going to line up for the tortilla and everything like that. And then by then you walk over to Borderberry and there's a lineup going out that door. And it's more difficult now. And you kind of miss the days where you could just walk in and get a seat at Bar Nestor because there was just space.
Yeah. If you want to avoid that, you can book a tour with me on potluckfoodtours.com or reach out through our social media.
Shameless plug. Shameless. Yeah, I mean, like, that was like when we were there, it was like 2013, right? And I mean, like when I went back, it was like just at the sort of like end of COVID. So I guess you didn't really notice it so much because places were just about opening up again, and there wasn't that much tourism. But yeah, it's crazy that it's gotten like that. It's almost like Japan level, no? That you queue up somewhere 2 hours.
Yeah. So especially this time, I mean, I still went to Bar Nestor and Borderberry, but the thing is, where I would have been able to go in one night, I had to spread it out over multiple evenings.
Yeah.
I guess, should we say, like, just for context, I live in Copenhagen, but I'm in San Sebastian for 2 weeks for vacation. So that's why I'm currently able to eat at these restaurants. But usually I don't live here anymore.
Yeah, that is some good context, actually. Maybe we should actually talk about, who you are and what you do.
The mysterious voice.
Who is a Koji Whisperer? Tell us more about you.
Well, the Koji Whisperer was not a Koji Whisperer 5 years ago. I was a pastry chef 5 years ago. And I was fortunate enough to be asked by Restaurant Noma to move into their fermentation lab and work with David Zilber, who was the director of fermentation and also wrote the white and orange guides fermentation that you may be aware of.
Yes.
This was 2019. I was coming over from Toronto, and I had the fortunate circumstance that David and I have known each other since, I think, 2010. 2011, when he was cooking at a restaurant called Hawksworth in Vancouver, and I was cooking at a restaurant called Splendido in Toronto. And his restaurant and my restaurant, we did a 4 hands dinner together. This was before 4 hands dinners were a thing. Like, this was a big deal that his restaurant, which was considered the best in the country, was coming to the restaurant that I was working at, which was considered one of the best in Toronto, to do a tasting menu together. And it was just for one night only. David was a sous chef at this restaurant, so he was plating on the outside, and then I was the saucier at the time. And so all of the things I was cooking, I was handing to David for him to put on the plate. So we worked very closely for that evening, and it somehow organically came up that we were both huge nerds about Star Wars. And I remember reciting the opening to Return of the Jedi line for line, alternating with him during the course of a busy service. That was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And of course, he went on to Noma. And then when I was thinking of leaving Toronto, I reached out to him, and he said there's the possibility of working at Restaurant Noma in the fermentation lab, because there was going to be an opening there soon. And I didn't say yes right away. I just wanted to make sure that he understood that I wasn't a fermenter. Like, I had homebrewed once, and I was a bread baker in past occasions, but I never made koji. I never made miso. I didn't know what koji was. I knew what miso was and shoyu and things like that, but I didn't know how to put the recipes together. And he said, we can teach you that. He was more interested in, like, work ethic and fine dining background and attention to detail and the hustle and things like that, like the intangibles that you can't really teach. So it took like a month to say yes to Restaurant Noma, because Noma's not the kind of place you want to go to and then not be good at the job, or go to and after 6 months be like, yeah, it's not for me. Like, you kind of have to do the work, the homework to commit and understand that if you do commit, you're going to be there for a while. And I always make a point of every subsequent job I take, I stay for longer than my previous one, which just forces me to go through the thought process of making sure that the next place is the place that I want to spend the next little while at, as opposed to, every young cook has a resume that's like 6 months here, 7 months there, 4 months there, one year there. And then at the end of it, you're looking at your CV and you're like, do I even have a mentor? Because you've bounced around so much. You've picked up all this knowledge from different parts of the world and different restaurants, but there is something to be said for staying somewhere long enough that you understand all the facets, and in addition to that, you mentor people behind you as well. And that's something that I think young cooks don't understand at the beginning. Like, I didn't understand that at the beginning. It took me experience as well to kind of see that happening in my own personal life. But yeah, I took about a month to say yes to Noma. And then when I did, I said, I'll give you 5 years plus. And then they hired me, and I've just crossed over my 5-year Noma anniversary this past May. Not to say that I'm thinking of leaving or anything at all. It was just like a mental thing. Like, I made that milestone. That was the goal I set out at the beginning. And now everything is just a bonus afterwards.
That's awesome, man. Really beautifully put, I think.
Yeah, sure. Now, going back to your trip here in San Sebastian, what are the places you've been? Because you've been to Echevarri, you've been working at Gerald's. We went to a Sociedad together. Where should we start?
I guess we can talk about Gerald's just briefly, because that's pretty much the main reason I'm here. So I had this 2-week vacation that I had an opportunity to take a bit of time off in anticipation for the pop-up happening this autumn in Kyoto. So at the end of July, so I have these 2 weeks and then another 2 weeks, and then I move to Japan. So I just wanted to go somewhere that was a bit familiar. And I also knew that in San Sebastian, there's a wonderful restaurant called Gerald's Bar, run by a wonderful friend of both mine and Phil's named Jess, who we lived with when we were interns at Mugaritz all those millennia ago when we were kids. And she's now the chef at Gerald's Bar, which is an excellent, excellent restaurant. And the menu changes every day, and it's a small kitchen. It's simpler food. There's no tweezers. It's basically the opposite of a restaurant like Noma or Mugaritz or the French Laundry, all these massive fine dining places that eventually over the course of a career as a cook, odds are you'll end up in places like that. It's just a natural progression. It's the Champions League of restaurants essentially. And I kind of wanted to go back to the roots of why I started cooking in the first place, because it certainly wasn't to have a 3 Michelin star restaurant and things like that. Like I liked cooking at a grassroots level. So I basically begged Jess to take me on as a stage on garde manger and just to do mise en place and make staff meal and work service. And Noma's all induction and there's only a gas range at Gerald. So like I'm sweating again, which is nice. And it's just the hustle of a service where the menu can change mid-service because you only have like 6 portions of pork left. And then you go into skates or you go into brill and there's only 1 portion of lobster this evening. And then after that, it's a fish or something. Like it's different in a way that for me, it feels like a vacation, even though I'm working. Not to discount the work that I don't want to call Jess's job like a vacation or anything like that. Like she does work very, very hard. It's just for me mentally, it's a different part of my brain that gets exercised, and that's what's enjoyable.
Yeah, it's a wonderful restaurant, and Jess is a badass. We would love her to have her in the show soon. And yeah, I remember I went with Phil at least once, maybe more than once to Gerald's together to eat. Yeah, wonderful place.
Yeah, we went a few times. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's like a real restaurant, at like a really high level. It's, like really intimately run by Jess and Bella. And it just does like real food in the sense that it just does what food in a way, like what cooking is kind of like in like its most raw form, like wants to accomplish. It kind of touches your soul and fulfills you and nourishes you and kind of, brings you like a moment of joy while eating. And, I think that a lot of chefs, they start out cooking because that's what they want to do. They want people to have this moment where, you kind of appreciate the moment that you're in and this thing that you do, you're eating every day, but at that moment you're eating something that just makes you very, very happy. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, because Jess also worked in really high end fine dining restaurants and she cooks at a super high level, but in a different style than what you would find in fine dining restaurants. But the produce is amazing. The execution is, fantastic. And she does it with like very limited resources, it's like you say, like the kitchen is small. She doesn't have a brigade of 12 people behind her. Yeah.
There's no ration open or circulators or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah. No water baths.
Yeah. It's like real old school cooking. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's like, there's not a lot of people like, especially nowadays, like when I come across people that like trial, for example, like to work in my kitchen, there's so few times that I see somebody who actually knows how to cook. They know how to replicate certain processes that they've learned somewhere else, but they usually require very, very specific procedure or very specific equipment. And then they can, like, if they have that, they can do that. And you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty nice. But then if you like take them out of their comfort zone and you kind of have to, wing it, you have to riff it, they're just completely helpless.
Yeah. I mean, at Gerald's, they ran a leek dish with a sauce gorbiche, and it was like, she doesn't have a recipe for sauce gorbiche. She just, it's mayonnaise with chopped eggs, some capers and whatever pickles you got around. You just make it delicious. And I've worked in restaurants where there's a recipe for mayonnaise to the gram.
Yeah.
And it's not any knock against that. Like that's how you get a consistent product. But I think there's also something very beautiful about, someone tells you to make a mayonnaise and your first question isn't, do you have a recipe? It's more like, oh, do you want vinegar in there or do you prefer citrus? Right? Like you already know how to build the recipe. There's little things that you need to confirm, and then you just go and season till taste. You get it double checked by the boss or whoever, and then you just run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that. I had a chef ask me the other day if I have a recipe for blanching tomatoes, for peeling them, and I was like, man, think about that for a second. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's like you get a consistent product, but like the product is not consistent because like the materia prima is not the same. And like, that's kind of like what I really like about, sort of like, Alain Passat, who claims that he's never written a recipe, because it's exactly what you say. It's kind of like, man, I want you to understand where it is that you're heading towards, and then work with what you have. And it kind of forces you not to robotically sort of like, follow steps that somebody else has told you. It forces you to really involve yourself with what's in front of you and really kind of open your mind in a way, right? Kind of like, is this good?
Yeah.
Yeah, understanding when a process is completed and when something is right, when is the right point to know it's done, basically.
Yeah, and you're creeping, like, because it's never really right.
Exactly.
Right? There's no right or wrong, basically. I mean,
there's no perfect mayonnaise, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you could try to creep towards that perfect pitch.
I have to bring something out, Phil, about Kevin, something he confessed today. He says ensaladilla is overrated. It's just like a tuna mayo with some potatoes in it.
No, as a salad. It's not a salad. It's not a salad.
It's a mayonnaise salad.
We went to Bar Antonio today on this pintxo crawl, and we got the ensaladilla rusa. And I looked at it, and I'm like, you get a big bowl of chips, like potato chips, and you just put it in the middle. It's a dip. That's like me and a basketball game, a bowl of chips, and a big dip bowl of ensaladilla rusa. It's delicious. Don't call it salad, though.
There's vegetables in there.
Yeah, it's you know what it is? It's tomato sauce that hasn't been put through.
That's true, actually.
That's all it is.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch to call it a salad.
Yeah, I'm never gonna get invited to Spain ever again after this goes live.
It's like calling guacamole soup. It's just a bit of a stretch. So, hey guys, I really want you to tell me about this like extravaganza that you had in one of the sociedades. Like, how did that happen? And like, maybe Eric, can you explain what a sociedad is for the uninitiated?
Yeah, like a sociedad is basically like a dining club. It's translated literally as a gastronomic society, but it's same as when you're a member of a sports club. You go there, you enjoy the facilities, you have your whatever tennis courts and you play there, or your swimming pool or anything. But in this case, it's like you have the facilities of a restaurant. You go in there, you use the kitchen, you invite your friends, you have a dinner party. And the best part is you just go home and don't have to clean anything. You have to bring your own food and you have to buy the drinks inside the sociedad. And so like Kevin told me to go to do pintxos or something, and Jose was organizing this dinner for some Japanese friends. And I was like, okay, it's very difficult to get invited to one of these if you're not a local, because it's something you have to know someone. So I thought it was a super cool opportunity to invite Kevin, and he actually had never been to one. So we went to do the fish shopping together. At the beginning, I was angry because Jose told me at the last minute, you have to buy the fish. And I was like, okay, great. Why didn't you tell me earlier when the fishmongeries are open?
It was like 6:30 p.m. when we were getting fish.
It's just the last remnants of the fish market. Saying,
yeah, he's like, we're going to go get fish together at 6:30. I'm like, what kind of dining society is this?
Behind the trash can.
So we went to La Brecha, to the market. Everything was already closed. Then we found like a fishmongery. Fish didn't look so good. And fortunately, like this place in front of McDonald's at the corner, they have really nice stuff, like whole crabs alive. Like they had different types of cococha. They have beautiful carabineros, all kinds of nice things. So we went there. We got some Atlantic hake cocochas, and we got some clams. So when we arrived to the Sociedad, it was quite funny because Jose was kind of like leading the whole operation. And he was like, okay, I have just little experience in restaurants and cooking. And here my first 10 years today are 3 ex-Noma and 3 ex-Mugaritz people. And we finished everything in seconds, chopping everything, getting everything ready. I was like, okay, everything is done. Like, I don't need to do anything else.
But wasn't there was like a rule, like you're only allowed 2 people cooking at a time or something like that. And it's if you're there by yourself, it's not enforced. But then we had 2 groups of like older Basque people come in to cook their dinner. And then we were kind of like, okay, we got to follow the rules now. And I was, a bunch of us were standing outside watching, Eric and Jose cook in the kitchen and just kind of feeling overall completely useless, but raiding the minibar.
That sounds like a pretty good time. So this is something I didn't know. So more than one group of people can be in the same sociedad and cook.
Yeah, of course.
I thought it was always like exclusive one group.
No. It's like a club. Imagine there's a club and imagine a swimming pool, right? Like everybody's swimming in the swimming pool because everybody's a member. Right? Now imagine the same like in a kitchen, same principle, right?
That makes a lot of sense.
And then naturally, as everyone's cooking, everyone's kind of giving the side eye to what the other groups are doing. And,
of course,
Furkan, one of the guys who was cooking with us, Furkan's been on the podcast before, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he did the India episode.
Yeah, okay. So friend of the show, Furkan, he told me that you guys did a sociedad the day before and you made very, very un-Basque food. Like there was like hummus and like curry and things like that. And it just so happened another group of Basque people, members of the club, came in and started cooking, and they were just very, very wary of what was going on in your guys' side of the kitchen. But yeah, it was really cool to see and see how other people are cooking in different dishes and like that. That to me is one of the big values, is the intermingling of culture. Just for me as an outsider, because I don't have a drop of Basque blood in my body.
What about the cheesecake, man? The cheesecake was a killer. It was an amazing cheesecake.
Well, it was like 1 a.m. I was happily tipsy, to say the least. And Jose does this cheesecake that is lights out the greatest cheesecake I've ever had in my life.
Really? That is strong praise.
No, it's very, very, very good. Jose started like a cheesecake startup. It's called La Vasca, and they're commercializing cheesecake only in Colombia, only in Bogota and Medellin. And once in a while, he cooks one of his recipe he developed for these kind of occasions. Or we did like a photo shooting of me walking around for like the food tours. And he also made a cheesecake. And for me, it's also like top 3 for sure, maybe top 1. Yeah.
Jesus, that is very high praise, because there's a lot of good cheesecakes around.
Yeah, no, but this one, I mean, he really freaked it out.
Jose's cheesecake, it has a very secret ingredient to it, and he told us, but I don't know if it's not public knowledge, right?
No, we should not disclose it. Only not in public. Yeah.
No. You can say it, but we'll bleep it out, and then we can all,
Okay, Xander, don't leave this on the show. This is a secret.
It's not chili crisp, guys.
This is proprietary information. This is the chili crisp moment for David Chang, but for us, we could get in a lot.
Lao Garma, that's a secret ingredient for the cheesecake. No, it's good.
Yeah.
But so little it doesn't taste like you can tell your dad and your mom, but not anyone else.
It just has this like mysterious bass note that's like, it grounds the whole thing. It's so good. And it looks like a Brillat Savarin or a Delice de Bourgogne, like that kind of, when you take a wedge of a wheel of Brillat Savarin, and it's creamy, but it's held together, but like a stiff breeze would knock it over and turn it into a puddle.
That's a magical thing, the sandwich effect. That it's like, like you have like solid on the bottom and on the top, but on the middle is creamy, nice and creamy, like a crème pâtisserie texture.
Yeah, that's really crucial. This is like, I mean, like Basque cheesecake is one of those things that there's such a fine line between it being raw, and then there's a really small margin to make it kind of okay, and then there's a tiny window where it's exceptional. And anything past that is really, 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 really mediocre. Mm-hmm. Like if it goes over, it's just like, it's whatever, Yeah. It is like tiny sort of like window. If you make the landing, the 10-point landing, like it's magical. It's like phenomenal.
So Kevin, and what about Echevarri? You were in Echevarri yesterday, just for pintxos. I know you couldn't get in. What happened there?
No, so the rumors are true, dear listeners, that on Sundays, Echevarri opens up the bar area for pintxos. So it seemed like I'm getting in trouble here, like all 50 inhabitants of the small village that Echevarri is in go to this bar, which I didn't imagine happening. So I had reservations at Chispa, which I think we'll talk about that at some point later in the pod as well. So I was going to eat at another restaurant in the same tiny village. And I thought, maybe we could grab a cheeky pintxo or two before the meal. And then we got there and there were like just a crowd of locals lined up, like having their Sunday late lazy lunch. And, it was a sunny day. And Phil, did we go to Etchebarri together? Because you've been to the village, so like it's scenic.
Yeah,
right?
It's tiny. It's like 2 houses in a church.
Yeah, and then you sit on a rock, and then you just look out over like mountains and valleys, and there was like mist around the tops of mountains. Like it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
So yeah, if there's a Sunday possibility, you can get your way into Achpe, Chondo area. I think they're building a train or something to get out there.
No, really?
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that because part of the magic of Etchebarri is it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was good to I saw Mohammed. I saw Moha. He made sure to come out and say hi to me.
Oh, that's very nice.
He was one of my first friends at Mugaritz when I spoke no Spanish, and he was kind enough to say I speak English, and if you need anything, let me know. But yeah, I wasn't able to get anything to eat, unfortunately, though. 2 of the companions that I traveled to Achpe with, they were able to get in because they weren't coming to lunch with us. And they showed me photos. It looked insane. And you can get the famous smoked milk ice cream.
Oh, can you?
In a cone.
As a pintxo?
Yes.
On Sunday?
Nice.
Oh, nice.
And it's insane. Like, that's still the greatest dessert I've ever had.
It's really good, yeah.
And I had it for the first time in 2012, and it's insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you describe it? Like, what is it exactly?
I mean, it's a bowl, like a big scoop of white ice cream, but it smells smoky in the most perfect way possible. It's not overpowering, but it's definitely, you can tell it's smoked. The texture is like when you buy a yogurt at the store, like a little cup of yogurt, and it's got the fruit in the bottom, like the peaches or the strawberries, the raspberries or whatever. And you open this cup and the top is like set. It's like set yogurt. And then you take the first spoon of that yogurt, and then the yogurt kind of turns into, a liquidy, creamy yogurt texture. But for one moment, it is set like a custard, like barely a trembling custard. The texture of the ice cream at Etchebarri is exactly like that first scoop for the entirety of eating this ice cream. Like, it's insane. Whatever they do to get that texture, I'll never understand it. I've tried over my career to replicate it, and it just disappoints me so many times.
Talking about replicating, what about Chispa replicating Etchebarri to the 2 doors next to it?
What a segue. So for the listeners out there in the ether who don't know Chispa, so Chispa is the Basque word for the noise that happens when you flick water onto a hot grill, like that kind of like. That's why it's called Chispa, because of that. That's the name of that noise. And the head chef there is Maeda-san, and he's a Japanese chef who worked at Etchebarri for
forever,
like a decade or something, right?
I've met him when he was a stage in 2013, so that's at least how long he's been there. We met in Old Town, yeah.
Back when the Old Town wasn't overrun by tourists.
Exactly.
I have to say in defense of Old Town, dude, you're in high season. If you come in December, you can have the same experience of going to Bar Nestor and then to Gambara and then to La Viña under the rain, of course. But you can do that.
Yeah, we were in the same nightclub as Juan Maria Azag, actually.
Yeah, you told me that story that you met. Well, when Phil was going to Mugaritz, he told me, I'm going to meet Juan Maria Arzac and I'll send you a picture. And like 2 weeks later, he sends me a picture with that Maria Arzac.
It happened way too fast, yeah.
Was this when we both met him and you said, can you take a photo of me so I can send it to my friend?
That's exactly it, yes. That's exactly it.
Yeah, I was a friend.
That's funny. That just happened live on air, was us connecting those dots, because I remember distinctly the like Juan Marie and like a fuzzy sweater with the red lanyard around his neck, and then Phil wanted a photo, and I took the photo to show to Phil's friend, and now I've met Phil's friend in a decade later.
Amazing. Well, was it at the Whiskey Museum? When I hear that story, I think of the Whiskey Museum, because you walk downstairs and there's like a karaoke and an old guy playing the piano.
So this was two separate occasions. One was that we met Arzak, and I feel like it must have been at Gastronomica, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, because you had some credentials, I remember in the picture.
It was Diálogos de Cocina.
Oh, yes. Yes, you're right.
We weren't at Mugaritz the same time for a Gastronomica. I think you were there for the one after I started, because I left in August or something before Gastronomica when you were there.
Yeah. And then on a separate occasion, I met Maeda-san, we're going back to Chispa now, and Juan Marie Arzak, who was very, very drunk and tried to chat up Tess in like some cellar dance.
Yeah, he has a reputation.
I mean, good on him.
Good on him, yeah. You go, Juan Marie. Chispa.
But I guess to bring it back to Chispa, so he's this chef who spent years and years and years under the tutelage of Vitor at Etxebarri, learning all the techniques and the ingredients and products and the dishes. And I mean, it's tough to decipher what is rumor and what is truth, but currently there's a bit of a rift between Etxebarri and Chispa, because I heard that, and this is all hearsay at this point. Like it's just rumors from other chefs or cooks. So Sander, you can leave this in or leave it out if you guys decide, whatever. But
no. We actually talked about this on the last episode. You have probably not heard it because it went out on air today. But we mentioned this, and then we actually verified with some newspaper articles where Vitor mentioned this, that he was actually angry about the whole thing. Not that. Okay. I mean, they greet each other, but there is like a tension, Like,
all right. So you guys talked about how there's the whole thing. Etxebarri will close when Vitor retires, and Maeda-san was like, "If you retire, can I take over Etxebarri and keep the restaurant open under the name Etxebarri?" And Vitor said, when I retire, Etxebarri goes with me. So to keep up what he loved doing, Tetsuro Maeda opened Chispa up the hill, up the massive hill. Like I was out of breath for the 9-minute climb was like vertical almost to get to this restaurant.
So to give it like more like a kung fu vibe, that you have to climb up the mountain to get the chuleta on top of the mountain.
I was like sweating afterwards, and like you get there and there's no sign, but there's the small 1-star Michelin plaque, and we're like looking at the building, and the host opens the door, and I went with Kevin Patricio, who's the co-owner, like one of the founder of Basqueland Brewery, and we both asked the host, like, give us like 5 minutes to just like catch our breath out here, because it was like we just climbed the Chuleta Everest.
And you can't drive there. How do the suppliers go in there?
No, like we walked up a road. You can drive there, but
okay.
Our taxi let us off at Etxebarri because we were going to see if we could get a pintxo.
Okay, I got you.
And like the regular people drove up, and we highly considered, like, is it bad form to try to hitchhike your way up the hill? Like if there's a table that's gonna, like, cabs past us, right? Like if you turn around, stick your thumb out, and like explain to them, like, we're going to the same place, and it's so hot and sweaty out here. Can we just share the cab for 25 seconds to get us up the hill? I'm sure that would have been a nice moment. But so we got to the restaurant. We had an amazing lunch. One of my main concerns about dining at Chispa was I was not worried, but I was in my mind. I was like, there's a chance that it could be just Etxebarri all over again. And I've had I'm very aware of my my fortune to have been able to eat at Etxebarri twice in my life. I understand there are a lot of people out there who have never eaten there, and some who may never eat there, depending on if and when Vitor retires. So it's a very first world problem of me to be like, I'm really worried that this new restaurant is going to be just a copy of the number 2 best restaurant in the world. But I understood that the chef was Japanese, and I'd spent time in Japan for the Noma pop-up in Kyoto, and I'm going back to Japan at the end of this month for 6 months for the next pop-up. So I was really hoping for Etxebarri, but through the lens of a Japanese chef who learned these techniques, knows these products like the back of his hand, but also has, arguably one of the richest culinary cultures as his heritage. And it was exactly everything I wanted in that meal. Like there was obviously a lot of Basque influence, Basque ingredients, but then like he did, I've got the menu in front of me, and there's like he did eel, like unagi.
Yeah, I saw some pictures. He's also doing like nigiris and chawanmushis and traditional Japanese stuff, right?
Yeah, like the eel, he did kabayaki. So, the usual way you would cook eel in Japan, but with a glaze of fermented apple and apple vinegar that he made himself. Like he's doing a lot of fermentations himself. He makes koji himself in the farmstead that he's housed the restaurant in. There was also, like it's guisantes season. So it's English pea season. And at Echibari, a very famous way they serve it is grilled in the little sieve on top of the charcoal just to warm them, and then dressed with maybe a little bit of olive oil, sea salt, and some onion flowers or something like that. And it's incredible. And I've had that dish both times I've been able to go to Echibari. And this time around at Chispa, we also got a bowl that looked like exactly the same, a bowl of guisantes lagrima. But he explained it. He said underneath the peas, he's got a chawanmushi of clams. So he steamed the chawanmushi perfectly, like the wibbliest, wobbliest chawanmushi you've ever had, that tasted like clam liquor, and then hit it up from sight underneath a layer of perfectly grilled peas. And to me, that was like the perfect, this is a tribute to where I came from, but also I'm putting my own stamp on it because this is where I'm truly from in Japan. He also had to explain to Spanish people what a chawanmushi was, which was quite funny because it was...
Yeah, I was going to explain. Probably a lot of people in our audience don't know. Chawanmushi is like a savory custard, and the texture is similar to a creme caramel, like a flan, like a thing that you could break with a spoon, but it's savory. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of dairy, you use broth. Like you would use a mixture of dashi, and in this instance, he used clam liqueur and things like that. But he explained it to the guests like it's like a flan. Es como un flan, pero no tienes azúcar, tienes sal. And people were just very confused by the concept of a salty flan.
That's so Japanese of him in a way.
You see, but I said the same thing, like...
I mean, if you think about it, like this, like Basque cooking, it has a lot of parallels with like this really puristic Japanese cooking. And I feel like that's like when I saw that he opened his own restaurant, I was like, man, that's super cool. And I would have hoped for exactly what you described. This is, Basque produce, inspiration, and this like raw, mythical feel of this Basque mountain grilling style of cooking, and with a Japanese sensibility. That sounds super, super nice.
That's it for this week's episode of Potluck Food Talks. If you like what we're doing, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok as Potluck Food Talks. The show airs every Monday.